Hello tacos, welcome back to summer camp here on our Tacos virtual platform. We have an exciting project today, friends. Yes, that's right, you are in for a fun day. So we are going to be doing one of my favorite things to do at camp, one of the best things we have to offer for our summer camp program, and that, my friends, is making tie-dyes. Yes, friends, we are going to be making tie-dyes. So stay tuned to hear about how you can perfect one of the techniques to have a really cool design for a tie-dye. Alright everybody, like I said, we are going to be doing a super fun activity today. We are making tie-dyes, and what we are going to specifically be doing is making a spiral form tie-dye. I'm going to show you guys how to perfect your spiral tie-dyeing technique. See, when it comes to tie-dyeing, there's all sorts of different ways in which you can manipulate the dye in your shirts and stuff to do to make really cool tie-dye designs. Like you can do spots, you can do ombre, you can do stripes, you can do anything like that. But today, I'm going to show you how to perfect the spiral form of tie-dye. You know, the cool tie-dyes with all the colors going in spirals. That's the design I'm going to show you guys how to make today. Now first, before we get into actually making the tie-dye, I want to preface that I bought this tie-dye supplies. It came in a pack at Michael's. And if you've ever tie-dyed before, you know that there are many different ways in which you can tie-dye and many different ways in which the dyes work. So some of them call for soda ash, where you soak your shirt. Some of them call for you to just dry and go in and do it. Mine was a certain way. I'm not going to show you necessarily the steps of how I went about my tie-dye kit, because I know tie-dye kits can be very different. So I'm just going to show you guys the technique of how to make the spiral tie-dye. You guys, I hope, will follow the instructions of your tie-dye kits wherever you get them or however you make it. I'm just going to show you the technique of how to make a really cool spiral tie-dye. So I just wanted to preface that because there are so many different ways to do tie-dye before we get into it. So without further ado, let's get into becoming masters of the spiral tie-dye. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to find a nice clean flat surface to place down your shirt that you will be tie-dyeing. As you can see, mine is this nice white shirt. And what you're going to do is you're going to stick your hand in the center, pinch up, and then start to twist your shirt around like this so that it keeps forming this nice little spiral. And you want to make sure that you do this until all of the shirt is spun around. And then as you can see, you can close off the gap at the ends by just tucking in the sides, and make sure you give it a good final spin. Next, you're going to take your rubber bands and you're going to create basically your quadrants, but also you do the rubber bands to make sure that the tie-dye sticks together. So I'm going to stick some rubber bands on here to keep everything nice and tight. I want to make sure that I don't clump any of the shirt that I have wrapped around each other. I want to make sure that I still have all of the center exposed so that when I do my dye, the color can get to that area. So you have to do this pretty carefully. Like I said with the rubber bands, I'm also creating my quadrants for my colors. So when I do my dye, I'm going to follow those rubber bands. Sometimes with tie-dyes you have the little areas of the sleeves or so that get kind of lost. Make sure you just tuck them in somewhere. It's going to turn out nice and beautiful no matter where they end up. It's going to still be a spiral. So I'm going to close up that sleeve there with the last rubber band here, and then I'll be good to go. The next step is you'll want to make sure that you have a nice clean spot to put your tie-dye, and make sure that it's covered with something so that the dye doesn't get all over the place, because it will. Then I'm going to put my settings down here that I'm going to use for my tie-dye. And then my dyes said they needed to be shaken well before we use them, so I'm going to go ahead and prepare those by shaking them up. And then you can place your shirt in one of the containers to get ready. Then sometimes you might want to wear gloves for tie-dyeing. Sometimes you might not want to because your hands look really cool. Just make sure you read the dyes to make sure it's all safe. But I put gloves on for me. Now we're going to start with our tie-dyeing. So I'm going to open up my first color, which is this red, pink, and I'm going to choose the area in which I will start. So I'm going to pick an area between some rubber bands to make sure that I have my red started. Notice I'm really making sure that I get all of the dye in every crevice to make sure that the dye is there instead of it just being a white shirt. Because the point is to get as much dye in the shirt rather than having leftover blank space that is still white. So there I have created my first little quadrant. Now I'm going to move on to the yellow here, and I'm going to get that open. And I'm going to go right next to it. Sometimes with tie-dye you do get cross colors, and you'll see here soon that I'll have a little bit of green form when I get to my blue. But don't worry about that because it's going to look really cool at the end and all the mix that happens. So just like I did with my red, I'm going to make sure that I get all the dye inside those crevices. That's why it was so important that when we were rubber banding that we kept that area open. We want to be able to get that area all colorful. I'm going to move to my blue and my final of the 3 colors that I have to round off this half of the tie-dye. See there, I got a little bit of green, but that's okay because just wait until the end. It's going to be really pretty. And just like with my other colors, I'm going to make sure that I'm getting everything filled in with color. And now that I've done half, I'm going to start my pattern over again on the other side using my rubber bands as quadrants again. I'm going to do it with all 3 colors until I fill up this entire side with dye. Then remember that there's another side to it, so you have to flip it over and get the other side with your dyes as well. Otherwise you're not going to have a very pretty looking design. So as you can see, I made sure to get both sides all full of the dye. Make sure that when you put your tie-dye down that you do it on the clean one, otherwise you're going to have color splattered all over the place and it's going to look a little silly. And then now mine needed some time to sit and wait, so I left mine overnight in this plastic bag. This is generally a good idea if you want to have vibrant colors with your tie-dyes. So after a very long period of washing and drying, here is the final result for my tie-dye. I think it turned out really well. The spiral looks amazing. The colors are nice and vibrant because I left it sit overnight. And I am very pleased with the tie-dye that I did. And I hope you guys can do something really cool like this as well. Alright friends, that was so much fun. I love making tie-dyes. It's one of my favorite things to do at camp. And I'm so glad I was able to show you one of the tie-dye skills that I've mastered in the spiral form of tie-dye. So that is our activity for this week. I hope you guys enjoy making tie-dyes. Go out and tie-dye a whole bunch of stuff. It doesn't have to be just shirts too. You can do any kind of material, and it doesn't have to be just white shirts. You can do any kind of other things like that. So enjoy the video of making tie-dyes. Show me if you guys make any tie-dyes. We'd love to see any of your results. And that is it for this week. We will see you next week for yet another fun summer camp activity on our Virtual Tacos platform. We will see you then.